Maybe I'm not the only one, but it seems like in this world that we have that's so full of information, so many videos on YouTube where we can find out anything on how to repair something, where to travel, whatever. And it seems like there's so many conflicting things. Now, I wrote the book Looking for Love in Thailand, and most of my videos tend to be about travel in Thailand, love in Thailand, and those type of things. And in anything that you look up, there's a person saying, yes, like travel. I'm a retiring age, so I've looked at different countries to possibly move to. One, YouTube video will state this country. Oh, you can live there for $600 a month. And the next video will say, God, don't ever move to the same country because it's expensive. They say you can live for $600 a month, but really I lived there and I was spending $3,000 a month, and I, couldn't keep up with everything. And there's always these conflicting things that you kind of get the feeling that somebody's lying, at least not telling the truth or telling you what you may want to hear. One of the things that people don't take into consideration is that the truth to one person isn't the truth to another person. It's all about perspective. When I look at places to possibly retire to, I'm look a lot towards Southeast Asia because I enjoy it so much there. And people don't realize that when they do these sensational headlines about don't ever move to this country or definitely move to this country, they're putting in so much of their own opinion. And a lot of times those opinions are not the same opinions that we have. Retiring in another country, okay, you see beyond the cost of it, which no one seems to agree on, there's also the fact that if you live in the West and you're going to retire in Southeast Asia, you have to think about all the things that go into that. In the West, we have everything at very close at hand. Whatever we want, we go down to the mall, to the Costco, to whatever, and it's there. We have grocery stores all over the place. We have shopping areas all over the place. If all else fails, we order on Amazon. It's a very easy way to get what we need and to live. In other countries where you retire to where the cost of living is lower, the standard of living might also be lower, and you have to take into consideration. You also have to think about some of these people are very unhappy after they've tried living somewhere and it failed, but they didn't really probably think it through. A good example is if you're thinking about moving from the West to another country, whether it's in Central or South America, Southeast Asia, you have to kind of give some thought about the kind of person you are. How did you do in COVID? Did you survive well and you had a happy existence for the situation, or were you one of those people that got freaked out and you had to go see a therapist because you were inside the house all the time with your own thoughts? And if that's you, you're not going to do well in a developing country that has a very low cost of living because there's a language gap, there's other things. And even though a lot of the countries have expat communities, it's still, you're not going to have the interactions that you have in the West, where you go everywhere and you have a conversation, you go outside, your neighbor's walking by, you go to the fast food place, the person that's in the window will greet, have a greeting and you have words with. And it's a constant interaction with people. Whereas you go to a country to where, 80% of the people don't speak, or 90, don't speak English, and it's going to severely limit how much you communicate with people. But you have to understand that. $650 a month living somewhere, that, sounds unbelievably low to me. But again, maybe that person is very cheap and can, everything every decision they make to spend money is like a labor, to where they constantly worry they're going to run out of money, and so they constantly compare prices, try to haggle people down. They do without things that they really want to save money, to not go over their budget. But the other thing that they, in situations like this, which they don't talk about, is as people get older, it's not like when you're 30 years old in great health in the prime of your life, unless you go out and do something like a sporting activity, riding a motorcycle, and an accident happens, pretty much you're set for health. I don't, I've had, in my entire life, I'm 63. In my entire life, I've had two surgeries. One, when I was about 6 years old, I had my tonsils out, and I had a vasectomy after my second child was born. That's it. I haven't, I'm in good health, and I always have been, but I'm getting older, and it's not always going to stay that way. And you're going, and you look, and it's like, oh, they tell me I can live for $650 a month. I'll be golden. I make $1,800 a month, and so I'll have all that extra money to spend and go do things, and go to the bars and buy girls drinks and stuff. But that's in the best situation. That's your rent and basic food. If you don't mind living on the local food, you living in a one bedroom older apartment kind of thing, and every little thing increases. So to get clicks from these ridiculously low claims. There's one guy that started a YouTube channel where he's telling you how to pick your lotto numbers for greater success. And it's like, really, how many lottos have you won? I want to know. I want documentation. Have you won, 4 or 5 lottos that you've really got nailed down and you have proof in your own life? It's kind of like the marriage therapist that's on his 5th marriage. It doesn't really build credibility. It's not people are lying. I think it's just they're explaining their own truth, their own perception of things. That's like I did a video on ladyboys when I was in Thailand the last time. I didn't really, being an older man, and I don't want to offend anybody, but being an older man, I don't know anything about transgender or ladyboys. I mean, a few things, but just what you hear and you don't know if that's the truth. So I went out and I interviewed some ladyboys to get an idea, and I had no idea about the whole top and bottom thing, to where the one group of lady boys should be kind of named boy ladies instead of lady boys, and the other group is the bottom group is more like a relationship would be with a woman. And so there's a lot of things like that the information, even though we're surrounded by information and almost overwhelmed with it, a lot of the basic information and the most helpful information is left out to get clicks, to make a video sound really better than it is. One of the things that you do have to keep in mind is it's a matter, when you look at a YouTube video, it's a matter of perspective. You may not agree with my perspective of things. Okay, that's fine. You don't have to. But at least I'm funny. But it's the perspective. You go to a old man who has been to Pattaya 100 different times, or he may even live there, and you ask him, "What do you think of Pattaya?" "Oh, I remember when it used to be this way, and you could buy beers for everybody, and girls were cheap, and all this stuff. I remember it used to be good back then." But you go to a guy that's the first time in Pattaya, and you talk to him after he's been there for 2 weeks, and he's like, "This is the coolest place ever, man." And it's a matter of perspective. Okay, if you don't know what it was like 20 years ago, you have no perspective of how things have changed. The other reality about the truth is you have to understand no one wants to kind of be portrayed as the idiot or the person that made a bunch of bad decisions and they should have seen it coming. You see that when you see these guys who have lost huge sums of money and they've opened businesses with a Filipina girl, and they've blown through all their savings and their pension, and it's just they should have known. And no one, like I said, you do you. If you want to give ladies in Southeast Asia money, then go ahead. But beware and realize what you're doing and realize the consequences of what you're doing. The same is true about anything. A lot of men complain about the bar girls, the freelancers nowadays, that they're gold diggers, that they're charging too much, or doing this or doing that. It's it's just different. It's not bad or good. It's simply different. And the perspective, whether you are for something or against something, is pretty much just that, your own perspective. And when you look at a YouTube video, you kind of have to see if people have a bias. Because so many people go to YouTube and base their travel plans on the YouTube videos that are being made. And right now, there's a huge thing in Thailand about tourism being over. It's so expensive. It's this, it's that. And it's a very negative feeling that I'm sure people thinking of going to Thailand get. And it becomes a self-perpetuating problem to where all these people are hearing about how many problems are in the tourism industry in Thailand, and they second guess whether they want to go to Thailand or Vietnam or Laos or Cambodia or somewhere else. And you have to realize that, it's not the tourism situation in Thailand is a lot of things that are beyond the control of Thailand or anyone else. First of all, the exchange rate. Now, the money situation and how currency is exchanged has affected some people, especially like the people in Australia. Their money has been, it's not worth as much as it used to be compared to the Thai baht. And so that has made travel to Thailand a little more expensive for them. But it's not ridiculously expensive. One of the guys from Thailand said, I used to be like a 7-day millionaire because the exchange rate was so good that, I'd go in and buy the whole bar beer and do these things. And with the exchange rate changing, there's also been inflation, but there's inflation everywhere in the world. How much, I never thought in America, I never thought I'd be paying almost $10 for a crate of eggs, but it went up because of problems and things in production. The price went up and then it went back down, luckily. But inflation happens everywhere. It also happens like in Bangkok. Bangkok is so expensive, but not really. Go to New York sometime if you want to see how a big city, how expensive it can be. You can still get a reasonably priced hotel in Bangkok. You can still get street food and go to Thai restaurants, and it's very affordable. But a lot of people don't talk about in Thailand, one of the things that's made things so expensive is our choices. There's so many, compared to 20 years ago, there's so many more options that are geared towards the high-end traveler. More 4 or 5-star hotels, more Western food establishments that offer more Western type food and more, I would say, like more gourmet options that make our choices much more expensive. And so that's not the fault of Thailand. That's not the fault of the exchange rate. That's our choices. And I always joke, it's like you take the average Westerner and say, okay, now for dinner tonight, you want to go to a Thai restaurant and have noodles and chicken? Or do you want to go to this other place and have ribs and steak? And of course, you're going to say, I want ribs and steak. But there's a huge difference. You can get a Thai dinner for like $3, $4. And with a steak, you're going to pay as much for it as you do in the West. So a lot of times you have to put things in perspective and realize, like I said, I don't think that people are lying. I think they're just giving you a version of the truth that gets them the most clicks, the most notoriety, and sets their opinion opposite from everything else that's on YouTube.